In the early days of YouTube, animations created using video game assets were making their way onto the platform at an incredible rate, but within the barrage of endless animated content being released, only a few creators stood out. One of those people went by the name of Monty Oum, who started by creating animations using characters from popular franchises, would eventually rise up through the ranks and create his own realised fictional world and characters. This is the history of Monty Oum. Born on June 22nd, 1981, Monty Oum, better known as his nickname, Monty, was well known for his 3D fighting animations that he shared across the internet. But Monty didn't begin to start creating his animations until well into his 20s. In his early life, Monty had dropped out of high school and had spent years as a professional dancer. During the time that he started to make animations, he was working a day job at Kinko's to make ends meet. Monty, however, had always dreamed of making movies and experimented with animation software such as Flash and Poser, although Monty has always considered himself more of a filmmaker than an animator when it comes to his work. Monty's popularity wouldn't fully take off until the year 2007, but Monty had actually been creating fan animations from as early as 2002. Little is known about Monty's life between 2002 and 2007, but what is known is that Monty created a series called Road, an animation series that lasted 3 episodes, which set Monty's real-life friends alongside video game characters against one another. Battles ranging from one-on-one fights in the style of traditional 2D fighting games to large-scale 3D battles, which fans of Monty would be familiar with from his later animations. The series references all sorts of popular media, such as Star Wars, Tekken, and Bleach. This was also the first time Monty would use assets taken from the Halo franchise, which, as we all know, Monty would later go on to use for his next movie. Road 4 had been announced but never got further than the R&D stages of production, despite Monty having planned sequels up to episode 9. Monty credits the Road series with helping him experiment with new techniques. This allowed him to create future animations a lot faster than before. With Road 3 having spent 8 months in production, his new animation would only take 1/4 of the time to develop in comparison. Monty's first taste of fame came in 2007, after he had purchased a $2,000 laptop on a credit card that, 4 years later, he stated he still hadn't paid off. Monty took on the task of animating something new. Having only spent 2 months creating his new animation, Monty uploaded Haloid. Haloid, which was uploaded to game trailers on April 17, 2007, mainly used assets from the Halo franchise, having its setting in what looks to be New Mombasa from Halo 2, with the protagonist originally believed to be Master Chief but is revealed in the post-credit scenes, with a few hints throughout the fight, to be Spartan 458 Nicole, who made her appearance in the Dead or Alive 4 game. The short animation starts out with Spartan 458 fighting generic grunts and elites from the Halo universe. Eventually Samus, from the Metroid series, using the character model from Super Smash Bros. Melee, drops from the sky to face off against the Spartan. Although throughout the fight, their attraction to one another grows, until they finally decide to join forces to stop the Covenant threat converging on them. The short animation was able to make an interesting storyline for the viewers to follow throughout the fight, without using any dialogue, and a twist towards the end which is lightly inspired by the ending of the original Metroid. Monty admitted that he wasn't too familiar with either the Halo or Metroid franchises, and chose to use assets from each game as he knew they would be popular. Haloid was well received online, which led to a director at Midway Games seeing the animation and offering Monty a job as a combat designer. So on June 22nd, 2007, Monty joined Midway Games to work on an unannounced game that unfortunately never shipped. Almost immediately after starting his job at Midway Games, Monty began working on a new animation project, borrowing yet more characters from the world of gaming. On October 10th, 2007, Dead Fantasy was released to the world. The first of an eventual 5 movies to be officially released in the series, Dead Fantasy 1 pitted the female cast of Final Fantasy, Tifa, Riku and Yuna, against the female cast of the Dead or Alive games, Kasumi, Ayane and Hitomi. This is where you really start to see Monty's unique fighting choreography come into play, while also blending in movesets inspired by other fighting games, such as the Tekken series. Dead Fantasy 1 begins with Yuna facing off against both Kasumi and Ayane. Yuna is eventually overwhelmed from the outnumbered fight, but is saved by Riku, who intervenes just in time to even the odds, and Team Final Fantasy starts to take control of the fight. Just as Yuna and Riku are ready to confront the wounded Ayane and Kasumi, Hitomi joins the fight, to which once again, Team Final Fantasy is outnumbered and takes a severe beating from Team Dead or Alive, where they are thrown through the wall leading outside. This is where we meet Tifa, which once again evens the odds just before the episode ends. The response for Dead Fantasy 1 was overwhelmingly positive, with game traders featuring it on their front page just a few days after its release. Monty decided he wanted to speed up the production of his animations and bought himself a new desktop computer, as his laptop was having a hard time being able to render the increasing amount of characters on screen at the same time. Dead Fantasy 1 was followed up with 4 sequels, starting with Dead Fantasy 2, which had a development time of about 4 months and premiered at the Anime Boston convention on the 23rd of March 2008. Dead Fantasy 2 continues where episode 1 ended, with Rinoa from Final Fantasy and Kira from the Kingdom Hearts series both joining the fight on the side of Final Fantasy, while Rachel from the Ninja Gaiden games supports Team Dead or Alive. After the release of Dead Fantasy 2, a director at Namco Bandai saw Dead Fantasy 2 and approached Monty with a job offer to work as a combat designer. Monty made the decision to leave Midway Games to join Namco Bandai and worked on the Afro Samurai video game, which saw its release in early 2009. Monty was promoted to lead combat designer after the release of Afro Samurai, and was set to work on Afro Samurai 2 before the game's cancellation. During his time at Namco Bandai, Monty released Dead Fantasy 3, 4 and 5, all within the month of July 2009. They had all been developed in conjunction of each other, and all 3 episodes first premiered on July 3rd at the Anime Expo 2009, and were released to the internet a few weeks later. Dead Fantasy 3, released July 13th, 2009, predominantly featured the one-on-one fight between Tifa and Hitomi, after the separation of each team into one-on-one battles near the end of Dead Fantasy 2. Throughout the episode, each character is able to land a decent amount of damage to each other, with the fight ending short of a conclusion as the scene fades out and cuts to a new character to the series. Helena, on the side of Team Dead or Alive, can be seen activating multiple clones of Kasumi as the episode ends. Dead Fantasy 3 is the first time in the series where we see physical damage on the fighters, with Monty saying he wanted to step up his animation with more emotion for each character, along with more realistic movements within the series. Initially, Dead Fantasy 3 was supposed to feature the one-on-one battle between Riku and Ayane, but was changed to Tifa and Hitomi due to Monty feeling he couldn't technically achieve their fight for Dead Fantasy 3. By pure coincidence, Monty had created a poll on his DeviantArt page asking his fans which fight they would like to see first, with the one-on-one fight between Tifa and Hitomi being the most popular vote. Only a week later, on July 20th, Monty released Dead Fantasy 4, which starts with a short scene of Kairi waking up on a beach before transitioning into the one-on-one battle between Yuna and Kasumi. The Kasumi clones that were seen at the end of the previous episode teleport in and surround Yuna, to the surprise of Kasumi, who appears to be shocked by their appearance. In retaliation, Yuna summons her Aeons to help fight and even the odds. Towards the end of the episode, Kasumi and her clones begin to overwhelm and dispatch each of the Aeons. Yuna collapses to the ground just as the clones are making their final push. But just before they reach Yuna, Cloud from Final Fantasy VII makes a surprise appearance and saves Yuna just in time. Kasumi, still with an uneasy look on her face, decides to teleport her and her clones away. With the battle over, Cloud and Yuna drive away. Cloud is the first male character to appear in the series. His appearance is teased during the title sequence of the episode, for those with a keen eye. This was surprising to most fans, as they had assumed the series would centre around an all-female cast. This caused a lot of speculation on which other male characters would show up in later episodes of the series. The last officially released sequel in the series, Dead Fantasy V, released on July 28, 2009. Hayate, from the Ninja Gaiden series, working on the side of Team Dead or Alive, makes his debut along with a group of shinobi, who show up just as Tifa was thrown outside the building. Tifa, who is severely outnumbered and injured at this point, attempts to make her escape, but is eventually captured by Hayate. The scene then fades to Kasumi fighting against her own clones. She soon becomes fatigued from the fight that appears to have been going on for a while. Just as her clones are rushing towards her for the killing blow, Ryu Hayabusa swoops down and finishes off the remaining clones, with Momiji following soon after, both making their first appearance in the series. They carry Kasumi away, with the episode fading out to one last scene, where Cloud and Yuna arrive at an unknown city. The story was set to continue, with the production of Dead Fantasy 6 through 8 underway soon after episode 5 had been released. Previews for episodes 6 and 8 had been produced, while episode 7 only appears to have had screenshots of the episode released. The only surviving video for these previews seems to be for episode 8, involving the fight between Kairi and Vincent on Team Final Fantasy against Momiji and Ryu Hayabusa from Team Dead or Alive. Production for these episodes, however, were continuously delayed due to circumstances in Monty's life constantly changing, and other projects taking priority over the episodes. During the series hiatus, Monty was able to release 2 spin-off music videos in 2010, which involved characters from the Dead Fantasy series dancing to popular songs released a year prior. Obsessed, originally sung by Mariah Carey, released on March 12, 2010, and Gi, which was originally by K-pop group Girls' Generation, released a month later on April 16th. This would sadly be the last time an animation in the Dead Fantasy universe would be released. But with Monty shifting his focus elsewhere, he would soon show the world that he was only just getting started. Join me in part 2, where we take a look into Monty Oum's time at Rooster Teeth working on the Red vs Blue series, as well as the development of his very own show. Thank you for watching, don't forget to leave a like if you liked it, and subscribe for future videos.